Now I'm live. Okay. Thought I was live a minute ago, but I guess I wasn't. Welcome, everyone. This is Jeff with Scoop Astrology, Deep Dive Astrology Coaching, YouTube at Scoop 3801. So my live streams are here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Fridays, sometimes Saturdays. But for now, we're keeping the 8 p.m. slot on Fridays. And I'm also on X, Astro_Scoop, and I'm also on Instagram, AstroScoop7. So please follow me on those sites where I do a lot of posting, and I'm doing more reels on Instagram, which are kind of short videos. So I'm doing less on YouTube and more on Instagram. So I'll try to cross share those with people depending on where you're following me. But it is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's March 16th, 2025. And we'll wait a few minutes. This is still early yet. And so I'm using this new software here, this new trial software, which I'm still getting used to. So it looks a little different than my other browser. And so anyone that wants to ask a question or comment, feel free to do so as soon as possible if you'd like, just so I can make sure it comes up in here. Okay, let me see here. Okay, there we go. Welcome. Check one thing here. Okay. All right. So hopefully everyone can see me from the other window. Yeah, that should be good. But bear with me as I learn this. Thank you for your patience and everything. I appreciate that. So again, we'll wait a few minutes. How's your week going? Today is the last Friday and the last weekend of Taurus. So for all the Taurus people you know that have or have birthdays this weekend, their solar return is almost up. They've had their solar return, and we're going to talk about a little bit how the late Taurus people born this weekend have a face-off with the transit of Uranus in Taurus. So we'll talk about that as well, talk about the transits, and I know we got into that quite a bit last week. Last week I talked about the last Taurus 3 decan, the late period of Taurus, and this week we're going to finish that up a little bit, and then talk about the Taurus-Gemini Cusp, which I'll try not to repeat myself from last year, but the cusp periods, they're really some of my favorite. The cusp periods are amazing, and anyone that's born on a cusp, you know kind of how special it is for you to be born on the cusp of two signs. And I always say this, regardless of which sign you are on the cusp, whether you're late one sign or early the other, you always have some traits of the other sign. So that sort of thing. But that's always fascinating with cusp people, because you can display the strengths or weaknesses of both sides, you know. And it also, there's more rulers to look at in your chart to see how you use your energy and where you put your intentions and goals and things like that, and what kind of activities you like to do, energy level, all that sort of thing. But again, don't forget to follow me on the socials, and please log into your Google or YouTube account and click subscribe on YouTube. Click subscribe for Scoop, and then click all or personalized. If you click all, you'll get every notification I have, which is generally once a week, sometimes twice, so it's not a lot. And then if you want to click personalized, YouTube will decide what videos from Astroscoop it thinks you may want to watch based on what you just watched. So if you go to my playlist and you watch an Earth sign video, which could be Taurus or one of the other Earth signs, if you watch a couple of those videos and you refresh and sign in, it may say, based on what you've watched, check out this Taurus Astroscoop video, sort of thing. So we'll only give you personalized recommendations based on certain videos, which is kind of nice because then you don't get bombarded from my channel or any channel. You don't get bombarded constantly with suggestions to watch certain videos. Every time I subscribe to someone, I always do personalized, and then I get one or two or a few a month, but not necessarily too many, which is a good thing. So again, today, the March 16th, and let me just look really quick. I think we have one person in here right now. I think we only have one. It's not really showing me who's here. So it must be, maybe there's a setting I'm not doing or I've missed. I'll have to work on that. But we will talk about the transits a little later, and I'm just going to look at tonight's chart really quick. So tonight we're at 22 degrees, basically 23 degrees really of Taurus. So we have just about a week left, really little less than a week of Taurus, and then we're going to go into Gemini. So the last degrees of Taurus are Taurus 3, as I talked about last week, the third decanate, which is ruled by Venus and co-ruled by Saturn. So Saturn and Venus ruling together. And then tonight is still Taurus 3. And then on the 19th, on Monday, that's what starts the Taurus-Gemini Cusp. So right here, May 19th to the 24th or 25th, depending on the degrees and your year, which is what I always say. But definitely getting towards like 26, 27, 28 degrees. That's where you're getting into cusp, because it's close and really getting close to Gemini there. Now, if you know someone that's born this weekend, or even from yesterday, the 15th, 16th, which is today, 17th, 18th, which is Sunday. So basically this weekend, right in the middle of the month. We're in the latest degrees, getting into the latest degrees of Taurus, Taurus 3. And I briefly talked last week about Algol, which is the Taurus star at 26 degrees. So within 2 degrees or so. So anyone with 25, 26, 27, 28 degree Taurus planet, any Taurus planet, including Taurus rising, a midheaven in Taurus, which is your 10th house, if any of those are conjunct Algol, it can be, metaphorically, it can be destructive energies, yet also a rebirth of power. And it relates to the myth of the head of Medusa and Perseus, the Gorgon stare sort of thing. And that's interesting to talk about the Gorgon stare from mythology, because people will often reference Taurus as having a bovine, if a Taurus person looks at you kind of quietly but sternly with a kind of a bovine stare that some Taurus people and even Taurus rising people can project, sort of thing. But Perseus, hero, beheads Medusa. So it's a very, very complex and intense myth that involved this Algol star, Gorgon stare, and it's really equals control or resistance to domination. So, you could look at it in a way, it's not all good or bad. It's just intense energy that may require handling, so to speak. And, for a woman or a man or woman, wouldn't matter what your political preferences are or values, but if you felt in life, if you felt you were an underdog, or you were you know, an outcast or a misfit somehow, but you had this sun in Taurus with Algol, it may or may not help you feel stronger in terms of your identity or self-esteem, but it does have a certain intense power that's sensual and passionate that the person could tap into. Now, obviously, a lot of that, as I mentioned last week, a lot of that could be misused, and you can misfire with that. And late Taurus people have this kind of caution versus daring qualities about them. Caution versus daring, daring versus caution. And depending on the day you see them, they have both of them there, and they're still a Taurus. But coming up on Gemini, they have more. There's more daring, is how I mentioned it last week. More daring qualities, or a little bit more adventurous, or maybe risk-taking sort of thing. But the Taurus-Gemini cusp, which starts next week, like all cusps, it definitely influences the planet or the native to not always, they're not always easy to pin down, because you have two signs operating kind of simultaneously. So Taurus-Gemini cusp, May 19th to the 24th. And this is late spring now. So now we're dealing with late spring energy, where everything now in my backyard is like the greenery is really there. Now it's smack dab in the middle of May. You know, when it was like May 1st or 2nd, like it was getting there, right, 2 weeks ago. And then last week it was basically there, and now it's like full on heavy late spring. And this comes into active thought, much more active thought, and less sensation. So Taurus is a sign, and this has nothing to do with the Taurus's intelligence, like IQ. This is not to say a Taurus is not intelligent or unintelligent, but a lot of Taurus energy is instinctive and kind of uses its sensation or its good sense, like a cow sense, good sense or common sense, with dealing with certain issues or problems in life. And sensation is very part of that, their sensation. But with this cusp, now we're coming near Gemini, it's very strong active thought, because the late Taurus energy is sociable in an earthy way, and then Gemini is sociable in an air sign way, in terms of wanting to go to different flowers like a butterfly or a bee. And that's very much Gemini, which we'll talk about pure Gemini next week, all Gemini. But when you combine that Taurus and Gemini, the earth and the air, you get a strong individual, but now you have that active thought. And it comes into chatter talk. Chatter talk. So if you've met anyone born this week, between the 19th of May to the 24th or 25th, you'll know that it is, there's an amazing, they're usually very witty. There's an amazing verbal or colloquial component to how they express themselves, more so than the earlier Taurus people, unless early Taurus people have major Gemini, in the chart there, which is possible. And so chatter talk, and it increases rapid force. So their pace, a Taurus Gemini person, their pace is more rapid. It's definitely faster than the first, second, or even third decan of Taurus, especially more so than the first or second decans of Taurus. The third decan, which we talked about last week, is definitely a little more, a little faster, a little more, can be a little more wild or natural in its expression. But you have this rapid, now the energy is starting to ramp up, it's rapid, and The Taurus-Gemini person is kind of like a force. And when you think about the heaviest earth sign there is in the zodiac, which is Taurus. Taurus, fixed Taurus. The first earth sign, the first fixed sign, heavy Taurus, and then the yang, air, mercurial energy of Gemini coming together. That is a force. Earth and air. So you have sensation, and then you have that active thought coming together. Very strong. And so this cusp, these people born in this cusp have quite a motor. They have just a motor about them. It could be a physical motor, it could be a mental motor, it could be both. But they definitely move at quite the pace, anticipating that pure Gemini 1 energy, which is coming, which starts right around the 25th or 26th of May, which, if you're born then, you would be a true Mercury Gemini. And we'll talk more about that. So stay tuned. And also, before I keep going, please, as I go through these live streams, I know they're long, usually an hour and 10 minutes. Please feel free to comment anytime or question what you might like to see for future live streams. So if you have an idea in your head and you're like, oh, I wonder if this guy could do this or do that. You know, Gemini's coming up, Cancer's coming up. I would love to know about the moon or whatever. So if you have any good ideas, especially if more than one person comes up with the same ideas, I definitely would love to cater to what people really want to hear about, kind of thing. I mean, I have my basic schedule of what I'm doing for the month for the live stream, but that doesn't mean I can't revise. Like we talked about Taurus, being able to revise their plans as necessary. So that's a big lesson for Taurus, but it's a lesson for all of us to be able to do that. So if you have any good questions or comments, please let me know. I would appreciate that. But it's rapid force. So you have a rapid need to manifest goals in a practical way, which is Taurus. Make money, build things, build projects, and then comes up on the force of Gemini. So it's that combination of wanting to build or implement a plan with all this rush of air sign energy, which is mutable and restless. So it's quite the mix. Now, the people I know several people on this cusp in acquaintance or friend circles. Trying to think if I have any family born that week. I don't think so. I don't think I have any family born between the 19th and 24th. Can't think of anyone. So, but I have known quite a few people born that week, and I know currently through our circles, I can think of three different Taurus Gemini cusp people, and they are characters. Absolutely, I definitely feel like the combination of Taurus and Gemini creates a certain kind of a character that is different than just a late Taurus or just an early Gemini. But that combination of Taurus and Gemini is really interesting. And a big lesson for them is Taurus Gemini person is not naturally very self-aware. Again, this is still an early energy in the zodiac. We might be able to relate this period to maybe based on 84 years of living, the cycles of 12, maybe 13 or 14, 12, 13, 14 years of age, that kind of energy of leaving childhood behind and then the budding teenager kind of thing. So one lesson for Taurus Gemini people is to monitor their hyperactivities. So they are undoubtedly, all the Taurus Gemini people I know are very, very active at work, but they're also active on sideline things, whether it be like community things or hobbies. Very much into that, very much into hobbies and like side things or side hustles. And so it's really good for Taurus Gemini people to monitor hyperactivities, because they can get into a state of doing things that is hyper, that goes at a pace where not only can they burn themselves out, but unlike a fire sign, it's more burning out their social batteries, um, their mental batteries. That's definitely something that they can be prone to, and they like attention. They're not going to shy away too much from attention. So more so than just a true Taurus, or more so than just a true Gemini, by combining these energies at this point, at this cusp period in the zodiac, you're looking at someone that has a high level of activity. I haven't known anyone born this week that really doesn't have a lot going on in their life. Usually they're hard workers, and they put a lot of mental effort, definitely put a lot of mental effort into their work, combining those two signs. But they should monitor their hyper activities. In other words, if they're getting into a state where they are manic, it's almost like a manic phase, like they're too fast or too hyper. They should think about, but again, they're not always self-aware, so it may take a family or a friend member or a coworker to be like, hey, don't burn yourself out, maybe you should slow down a little bit, kind of thing. And because they can take on a lot, they can chew a lot in life, and they like things to be dynamic and moving, not static. So that's the interesting thing, is a late Taurus starts to get wilder with its energy as it gets close to Gemini. But someone that's let's say the very last degree of Taurus on this cusp, let's say someone's a 29-degree Taurus cusp, they are still a Taurus person, but they're so close to Gemini that their Taurus ways are much more diluted. And then they will have some Gemini traits as well. If they're a 0-degree Gemini, they will be a Gemini person, but they will have little hints, residue of Taurus traits there as well. And I'm thinking about some people that I knew that are Gemini 1s, which we'll talk about next week, and how kind of different that plays out when they get into pure Gemini and not on the influence of Taurus on the cusp. So monitor those activities. They do have a strong social battery, though, even though I just mentioned that they can burn out from social activities or too much mental activity. But they do have a strong social battery. And I think part of that is because of the Taurus part of them that has stamina. The sign of Taurus basically has good endurance and good stamina and can hang in there. So depending on obviously the person's age, how they take care of themselves and their health, but that mental activity, that practical and mental need to express practically, but also facts and just information, local information about family or their business, they really want to share that. They really want to share that, and that they do have strong social battery for that. And they are confident. They have a good confidence, yet it can often hide insecurity. And the sign of Taurus can absolutely be insecure. And when Taurus is insecure, and I mentioned this before, when Taurus is insecure, Taurus can be quite negative and can really display more of those weaknesses of the sign and of Venus, the bull. And Gemini, as we'll talk about next week, Gemini can be quite scattered And so those energies can get really muffled together, and that can create insecurity kind of behind the scenes of the Taurus person, kind of thing. But it's, I would imagine for the Taurus and Gemini coming together, that it's hard to reconcile the cautiousness with some of that Gemini. Like Gemini doesn't like restriction, and Taurus, with the Taurus part, would be more apt to follow rules or follow a method of at work, or just doing something in general with a game or a hobby, whereas Gemini might balk at the restrictions and might not want them. So it's a little bit of both, and that can create some insecurity. So I just want to do a check here before we go to the next section. If anyone can see me, because I don't have any comments. So if anyone's in, can you just make a comment, like say hi, or just any comment you'd like? I'm just trying to see if this is working. Because last week I saw all the comments. So I'm not sure why I'm not seeing any right now. Let's see. Okay. All right. So Carolyn says, hi. Okay. All right. So I see her. Okay. So it's possible that you're the only one in here. That's possible. Okay. All right. So it is working. Last week I had my screen here froze up, and it blacked out 3 or 4 times. I don't think the viewers saw it. I don't think you saw it, but I saw it, where it blacked out on my end as I was talking, and I still had the audio, but I didn't have the visual. So it was a little glitchy. So just bear with me. I appreciate your patience again. And let's see. I was hoping some more people would come in. All right. So the one last point I want to make about Taurus Gemini is the opposite in 6 months is Scorpio Sagittarius cusp, which is the cusp of revolution, which is water and fire. Obviously, very different. But what the two cusps share is a strong, kind of a strong passion for knowledge and like kind of practical knowledge. Whereas with the Sag cusp, it would be a little more philosophical. But Taurus Gemini has a need for practical knowledge, practical, methodical things that they can use quickly, learn quickly, and influence their current environment, kind of thing. Because like I mentioned before, they don't mind a little attention. They don't shy away from it. And another thing I've noticed about people born on the Taurus Gemini cusp is how just loud that their normal voice volume, I should say their usual voice volume, seems a little loud to me. Maybe that's just I'm thinking the 3 I'm thinking of are all males, so I don't know a lot of females born that week coming up. Most of them are males, but there's something about the way they laugh or tell a joke or something that's a little, like I said, it's a little forceful and a little loud, which the Scorpio Sagittarius cusp can also be a little loud. So there's similarities always there with the opposite, and yet obviously quite striking differences as well. But with Earth and Air, you generally speaking, you have a person that's reasonable, has good rational thought, good practicality, but they often miss the more subtle nuances of life, or if you're telling them something mentally or how you feel about something, they may miss the more subtle things or not get it. And so self-awareness is not at the top of their list for strengths. That's something that a Taurus Gemini person could work on. But this person is has more of an ability to revise their plans, and more so than a Taurus born this week, like we talked about last week, which was Taurus 3. Taurus Gemini coming up on Gemini, even someone that's still a late Taurus, almost Gemini, would have that ability to combine both. And then you would look at Venus in the chart, and you would also look at Mercury. So now with a Taurus-Gemini person, you're not just looking at Venus. You're looking at Mercury, and then you're looking at, are there any aspects to Mercury and Venus, and what are they doing, and where are they in the chart? And that'll give you a lot of information, how the person uses their energy. Okay. So I just want to touch on briefly, we had the full moon. I was talking about, we had the full moon on Monday. It was 22 degrees that opposed the sun near Algol. And then we had that grouping of planets. The cool Scorpio moon, cool surface, hides emotional intensity. And that's what the Scorpio moon is all about. And the lesson was need for control in order to increase their connection with others, and lessen the need for control, increase connection. And that's very important. It's important for a lot of us. Manage resources wisely and let go of what holds back. That's mainly, that I was writing that mainly for Scorpio and Taurus planets because of that polarity opposition that Taurus and Scorpio had. So we won't have that combination again until 6 months from now, but it will be flipped. It'll be Scorpio, it'll be the full moon in Taurus. It'll be Taurus and Scorpio, it'll just be flipped, which will be similar, but yet a different dynamic since the moon will be placed in Taurus in November, that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about full moon Scorpio. I know we talked about that last week, and if you catch this replay tonight, please check out my my Taurus video from last week when I talked about all that and the transits. Especially towards the end, we talked a lot about the transits, the planets, the full moon. So there's a lot there. If you're interested in that, there's a lot to absorb and hopefully learn. But now we will go through the transits tonight. So this is going to be a broken record every week, so I'll try not to say it every week. But Pluto's at Aquarius, 3 degrees. Now it's retrograde, so it's going to come back. It's going to go back to 2 degrees. And so all those early Aquarius planets are getting a conjunction, and they're going to get it again. So they had it before when it first came in, and it's coming back to hit one more time. And then once it moves forward, those early Aquarius planets will be done with their conjunction and their lessons, and then it will start to move towards the mid degrees in the coming decade, the mid degrees of Aquarius, and for the fixed signs as well. So we have a square in tonight's chart. We have a square with Jupiter, the North Node, Neptune, and Saturn, all square. And that is a mutable square. So there's a lot of restless energy. And one thing about the mutable signs that's interesting. Now, Gemini is mutable, which we're going to talk about next week. Taurus is fixed, obviously. The Gemini's, the mutable signs, in a way, are the strongest. Out of cardinal, fixed, and mutable, the mutable signs can be the strongest. And by that, what I mean is the mutable signs kind of take what the cardinal signs initiate and the fixed signs work on, and they restructure it and synthesize all this information, feelings, data, and juggle it, and then spread it or respread it in a more effective way, or a more persuasive way, or in a different way. So mutable signs can change their path, and they can be malleable. Now that could be a downside by being unreliable or flaky or not sticking to things. And talk about that when we get to Gemini. But the ability to adapt and not be stuck in one mode of doing things is a really big strength for all 4 mutable signs. It really is, and it helps. I think it helps with survival. I really think, personally, as an astrologer, if I see a chart that doesn't have any major mutable signs, that's a concern for me in terms of the person's personality and possibly being quite rigid and not being able to change their views, adopt different views, change habits, or be able to work with or see another person's habits or point of view, sort of thing, which is very important. Without giving our power away, it's still very important to hear other people out and give people the respect, to just hear them out. And the mutable signs can do that. So having this square here it's a lot of tense mutable energy, but it's also can work really well in dissipating and in making the energy, some of the stuck energy with Taurus and Scorpio, dissipate and move, which ultimately needs to, because the fixed signs are fixed, they're resolute. They can very easily get stuck, and they do get stuck. And getting stuck can be both a pro or a con, in terms of like sticking to something and accomplishing it and being reliable, or just getting into a bad behavior pattern or bad mode that doesn't serve you. So that's really interesting. And there's a strong Earth. I'm going to show you the chart in a moment. Strong Earth tonight, fixed energy, and look at this. The Sun is in 10 aspects. The Sun has 10 aspects tonight. So why is that important? Well, not only does it fire up the Sun in Taurus and this Algol star, it fires up the Algol star and the Algol energy, but for Taurus people born this week, and especially yesterday, maybe even the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th, let's say, Taurus people, it's so powerful because not only are they having their Saturn return right now, so someone born today he or she's having their Saturn return, but they're having their Saturn return with Algol, and it's conjunct Uranus in Algol. And because the Sun has 10 aspects, it's firing up the cosmic energy. A baby born right now is going to have 10 aspects to their Sun in Taurus. So that is widely dynamic and is going to give this baby, this person, all these different lines of where to put their energy, where to direct their energy, like a movie with a lot of really good actors, not just one or two good actors, but different actors for different scenes. So it's a really really interesting. So let me see if I can share. Let me find my chart here. All right, let's see. All right. Should be coming on any second now. All right, there we go. All right. So this is our chart for May 12th, 2000. Oh, wait a minute. What did I do? Oh, this is the. Okay, 1 second. This is the 12th chart, the full moon. Oh, I apologize. Okay. I had the two up. All right, let me redo that. Redo that quick, and we'll look at tonight's chart. That would be helpful. All right, May 16th. All right. All right, hopefully this one works. All right, let's try that again. Chart. Okay. There we go. Okay. So we went from the full moon chart. So this is May 16th, 2025, Eastern Standard Time. And I actually, since it's almost 9 now, I put it at 9 o'clock instead of 8. So as I mentioned, there is very, very strong earth energy here. And this is amazing. This is really, truly amazing. And I know you're hearing other astrologers write or talk about this. But here's your Algol degrees, 26 and 27 of Taurus, conjunct. So Uranus is going to go into Gemini soon. So any Taurus people that are born this weekend of any year at this degree, this is monumental. And I would love to get comments, feedback from Taurus people, from late Taurus people. How are you feeling? And what kind of challenges are you going through, or lessons? Now, Uranus is not Saturn and it's not Pluto, but it's Uranus, which is, sudden changes, and it's Algol. So that is quite amazing. Now, the moon's in Capricorn tonight. It's not quite trine the Taurus. It will trine tomorrow. But all that earth energy, and then here's Virgo up here. Get the Virgo up here, and that is, it's just kind of sitting there, not really doing much, but it's there. It's on the house cusp. But strong earth energy, and then the fire. We have the fire here. We have Mars and Leo. Now, I just want to make a reminder here that all these planets are direct, station direct, except for Pluto, and then the node in Pisces, which is now retrograde. So Saturn, almost Aries, Neptune, Aries, Venus, Aries, Mercury, Taurus, Jupiter, Gemini, the moon. Here we have Sagittarius rising. For our baby born at 9 o'clock tonight, he or she would have Sag rising. But so not too much strong fire, except this outer Aries. And the Saturn in Pisces, that's at a critical degree. It's almost Aries very, very soon. But again, it's still on a cusp. So even when it's 0, 1, 2, like this one's 1, it's still Pisces Aries cusp. So these signs don't take on their true full energy until they get out of the cusp zone. At least that's how I think. So you got to get into 1, 2, 3, get those like first 4 degrees out of the way for that early raw period with its cusp, and then getting into 4 to 5 to 6. Now you're in the early raw true period of whatever sign is placed in that planet, and then you're getting the more true. You're getting the true ruler, the one and only ruler of that sign, sort of thing. All right, let me just look quick here. So here, let's see. Let's see. Okay. So very, very strong fixed emphasis and strong earth emphasis. And what we're really low on is air. We're extremely low on air. So the heaviness of a heavy Scorpio moon in the Taurus, there's a little bit of a lack of clarity or detachment in the cosmic sky right now, in the cosmic air. It's a lack of air. Jupiter is in Gemini, which is a star that's Jupiter and Saturn. And of course, Algol takes on Saturn and Mars qualities, which is why it can be kind of destructive. Now Algol can be violent, but not necessarily literally violent. It could be someone that has a Taurus planet that is beheaded, or feels like they're out of their head, or they've lost. Oh, you've lost your head, man. You've lost your cool, right? So that sort of thing, and that would be like, a Taurus pushed to its limits, sort of thing. But another thing with this Taurus energy, and I was mentioning this a little bit last week with late Taurus degrees, is that if a Taurus person has compulsions to do things a certain way, whether it's positive or negative, however, a lot of it is their perception, or it's just habit, and it's just the way they've done something their whole life, and they don't necessarily change it, even though even just a little bit of a tweak could really help them. A little tweak could help them succeed or make things easier for them, sort of thing. But the word Algol is ghoul, right? So it translates to ghoul, Ghoul, ghoulish, demon, ghoul, ghost, whatever, this kind of dark energy. But it also is a derivative of alcohol. So does that mean that Taurus people at this degree would drink a lot of alcohol? No, not literally. But the way I look at it is many Taurus people that I have done readings for or have known that are born this week right up to near the cusp, right up to about the 18th or 19th, tend to have a very strong, I call it a holic tendency. And yes, it could be workaholic. It could be buildaholic. It could be just something they do compulsively, that at some point it starts to get to be too much for them, and then their life is not balanced. Either they're working too much and they're tending to their family less, or they're tending to their family and something else, and then their work's suffering, or it's a hobby that they do too much. It's just something that's just unbalanced, and that's why it could be a holic. Karen says, so interesting your take on mutual signs. Oh, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about that next week. Your sign Gemini. Yep, we'll talk about that. But this late degree of Taurus, it's really important for these Taurus people. The coach in me, the astrological coach in me, which is one of my techniques that I do with people. Some people just do psychic, intuitive. Some people just read charts mathematically. Some people are just very, very high IQ, and most of it is intellectual. But mine, a big part of my, if I was reading this chart for someone, it's, yes, there's logic there, and I'm deducing certain things, but it's also, I'm looking at it from a coaching point of view on how can I help. You're welcome. How can I help inspire this person? How can I help influence them in a positive way as a coach or a mentor? It doesn't mean I know more than this person or know more than you. It doesn't mean I'm better than anything than you. It just means there's certain ways I might be able to help influence you to extract the best from this chart or from the person. And I really, really do see the late Taurus people as having that kind of tendency to do something over and over and over too much, whether it's, it's amazing to me how, like, some people say Taurus is lazy. Now, we've talked about this before. Lazy is, your definition of lazy and my definition and the next person is going to be different. What's lazy? Yes, there are some objective things where someone might be really lazy, but lazy is not, if you're productive in your life, but you're not too busy and your priorities are good, you tend to your family, you tend to yourself, you tend to your job, your pets or hobbies, and you really try to find a little time for everything, then, but that's, even if you're not so busy, that doesn't mean, either way. So, but I find that the late Taurus energy, people tend to have that holic tendency to just overdo, even if it's in a quiet way. I had one person tell me, I knew someone born this week that was 16th actually today, and through work, and one of the coworkers said to me, this woman, she never takes a break. And I said, what do you mean? She said she's always glued to her computer screen and just she doesn't allow herself a break. And, she'll eventually take a break, lunch break. But even if she's ahead of her work, let's say she's an hour ahead and she has a little time to play with, she was just mentioning how she just doesn't, she doesn't goof off or, sort of thing. So a lot of that has to do with the values, obviously, that you learn from your parents or, how you grew up. Maybe learn that in college, etc., that sort of thing. But this energy requires balancing. And I really think it's like, if we were thinking of alcohol, it's like it's like the person is looking for something in life to feel intoxicated about. That's how I see it. And I've never met a late Taurus that didn't have this quality. It doesn't mean they're negative. It doesn't mean they're an addict but there's there's this like thrill or excitement that they want. They want to feel in their body. They want to feel in their mind. Again, it's not just Taurus and it's not just Gemini. That's the beauty and mystery of this cusp. They really want a thrill, and they want to, they want to kind of like look at the details of it, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, and have that excitement because one is, they are afraid of being bored, which is more of a Gemini thing, but there's definitely maybe a fear of being bored or fear of missing out on things, so that they're always getting these, things going, or these irons in the fire. But it's a good thing that Taurus generally has a lot of stamina and endurance. And generally speaking, I think the sign of Sun in Taurus is a pretty healthy, it's a strong constitution. So I would imagine people that are Taurus would be relatively healthy throughout their life unless they had afflictions. It's not a dynamic, vibrant energy, but it is a strong kind of robust constitution, except for the throat. And I did a quick reel today. I'm going to try to upload it to YouTube. I did a 2-minute reel about Algol, and so Taurus people of all decans really have to be careful of their speaking or singing voice, and their neck, lower jaw, and of course the vocal cords and everything, all that throat. So careful of that. I wonder if there is anything about Taurus people maybe getting strep throat, something like that, more so than other people that don't have major Taurus. But again, I just want to mention that any planet that you have in your chart that's near this degree, even if it's an outer planet, is still going to affect you. Now, John Lennon, I was going to look this up before, but I forgot. John Lennon, before he was shot, John Lennon, I believe, had this degree in his chart, and I think it was a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and that occurred right before he got shot. So that was definitely something. And there's other examples, like Malcolm X. He has something in his chart that's Algol. I think Martin Luther King does. Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones, he has a planet conjunct Algol. So I might do a video on that. There's a whole bunch there. There's a whole bunch of potential negative energy. And that energy is intensely either sexual or sensual, which can be great. It can be thrilling and adventurous and really fun for them. Or like I said, if it goes back to the holic, the holic tendencies, it could be absolutely be toxic or negative. And a late Taurus degree, if someone is unstable and they were pushed too far emotionally or physically by someone, I would worry that person, that strongly Taurus person, could be very violent. Absolutely, physically violent, yes, if they were pushed to the absolute limit, and they had, especially if they have more than one Taurus planet in their chart that's near Algol, like if they had a Sun conjunct Mars or something, that'd be a lot. Like this Mercury in Taurus is not, sort of thing. But yeah, that's very, very interesting. And the mutable signs, it's, sometimes sometimes in the charts here, and see this changes every hour because it's based on your time. So if I did a baby born at 12 a.m. May 17th in 3 hours, that baby is going to have the same kind of similar planets, but then the house cusps are going to change. So maybe then he or she might have Capricorn or Aquarius rising. And that's when you get into the nuances of how it changes hour by hour a little bit there. All right, so remove that. Okay. All right, so let's talk about celebrities. So I had so many good. There's so many good people this week. It was so easy. This was one of the easier ones, and I really have fun with the cusp people because they often will they'll look like more of one of the signs, but the way that they express in their craft, in their acting, in their vocation, can be like the other sign sort of thing. But they often will have a very physical, strong physical look that's just one of the signs. Pete Townsend, the guitarist and song composer from The Who. He, The Who is a prolific rock group from England, one of the biggest rock groups of all time. And Pete was and is the main composer. So the prolific amount of songwriting that he did and musicianship and guitar is just unbelievable. So when you think of the amount of stamina and energy that's required to be in a studio and do that for decades, that gives you an idea of that Taurus and Gemini coming together. Jane Whelan from the Go-Go's, very, very kind of high-strung female musician, but also underrated. Very, very, the Go-Go female, they were a pop group, but they're very, very good musicians. Ronald Isley from the Isley Brothers. There were so many iterations of the Isley Brothers, I think going back to the 50s or 60s, and some of them are still going today. So it's so confusing. But he's definitely, he sings kind of central, but he also sings kind of high, which kind of reminds me of Gemini. Then you have Wagner. You have the composer Wagner. I know some people that like him. I think Wagner has a certain, I don't listen to him a lot, but some of the music I've heard, the classical music, he definitely has a certain vibe that is very much Taurus and Gemini, that's on this Earth-Air cusp. Iva Davies is the songwriter for a group called Icehouse from Australia, and they had some hits in the US, but they were mostly large in Europe, in the UK. But he plays every instrument, incredibly versatile, and very, very good earthy kind of sensual music and good storytelling. So he kind of appears more like a Gemini to me. Morrissey, the lead singer from the Smiths, one of the best alternative bands from the 80s, and he definitely had a certain sensuality about him, or has, and but he also has the kind of somewhat rebellious and dislike for restriction that early Gemini energy has, which we'll talk about, and he definitely has both of those energies going on. Rick Wakeman is another one from progressive music from Britain. Klaus Main, I think I mentioned him last year, from the Scorpions. Really, really one of the best singers in rock. Paul Weller, in many different British pop and post-punk bands. Mark Mothersbaugh, it's quite a name. Really, really quirky, highly intelligent songwriter for Devo, the group Devo from the 70s and 80s. And Christopher Hall, who is a singer-songwriter from a group called Stabbing Westward from the 90s, and a group called The Dreaming, which is really interesting. And physically, if you look at these people in a picture, a lot of them do look kind of like twins-like to me. They have a look like they could be one of the twins, like you see those twins pictures or the animation. They look like they could be one of those. But there's often a little bit of, like with Klaus Main and Morrissey, a little bit of a rugged still a little bit of a rugged Taurus look, or with the shoulders. Even with, that's what's so interesting, even with a very thin man or woman that's not big boned, you with the Taurus influence there, especially Taurus Sun or Taurus Rising, you're going to see that the neck, and you're going to see those those shoulders kind of thing. All right, so looks like we have 3 in here. Okay, let me just check here. All right, I guess I don't need to do that. All right, so I guess it automatically brought me over. Okay, that's good. Let me just see here for a second. Okay, all right, there's a little delay, but that's good. All right, so I'm glad at least last week when I had the glitches, at least all of you that were watching at the end there, those last like 10, 15 minutes, I'm glad it didn't glitch out for you. That's really, really good. Very, very important about that, even though I couldn't see. Okay, let's see. All right, let's go back to that chart again. Let me see here. Facts. Let me see. All right. Let's see. Oh, there we go. We lost it. All right, hold on 1 second. All right, let's try that. I don't know where it went. Oh well. All right. So I just wanted to mention again on from Algol. So this Algol star, for 26 degrees, this is also it's very important for not just Taurus, but just like any big configuration with the outer planets, any transit that's powerful. That also goes for Scorpio planets that are late, right around 26 degrees, Aquarius planets, and Leo. So I've been talking about the whole time about just conjuncting this other Taurus planets, but it's square Leo and square Aquarius, which is tension, but that can lead to a lot of growth. And then it's opposing a late Scorpio person, which the opposition is like a rubber band. And often the oppositions often require you to learn how to work with others. The opposition is often kind of like an energy like, am I too selfish in this situation that I want my own way? Or am I too self-sacrificing or people-pleasing in this situation that I'm giving away everything at the expense of my own health or my own, rights kind of thing. So holding on too much, being too selfish, or giving too much, or for people that, that don't deserve it. Neither of those extremes is good. So the opposition, that really that would be the Taurus Scorpio opposition that we saw on the full moon. So anyone that has a late Scorpio planet, it's still activated by Algol, but in an indirect way. And then what I would do is I would look to that person's Taurus in their chart, that Scorpio planet, and see, is it opposing any of their Taurus planets? What house is it in? And then I would then I would look to see if it's hitting anything with Aquarius or Leo, sort of thing. So one thing I wanted to mention before we leave is I was planning on having a guest that we were going to talk about a natal chart, and I did get an email from someone that wants to be a guest on here, and so we haven't connected and been able to pick a time yet. I was hoping for tonight, but it kind of was last minute. So maybe next week or the following week, we'll try to have a guest, and I can share their information. They said it's okay for me to share their chart, and they want to share the chart with the group, with the chat, and then see what you guys or gals can figure out. And I'll probably give her a 10 or 15 minute free reading, analysis we'll do on here, share the chart, and then kind of go from there. So hopefully that'll be in the next week or two, and so we can make this chat a little more interactive, which would be great. But happy birthday to all the late Taurus people. And again, May 19th to the 24th. Looking forward to that. Me too. So next week, May 19th to the 24th, is still late Taurus, and then going into early Gemini. So if you know anyone, they are Taurus-Gemini Cusp. But if you know someone this weekend, then you'll know that they are or were conjunct Algol, which has, like with anything powerful in your chart, comes with great responsibility. So it's all on how we use it, kind of thing. But very powerful, yeah. So yep. So I'll help to do that. And again, please follow me on X and Instagram. I'm going to be doing a lot. I'm really ramping up my Instagram reels and stuff, and I've been getting some traction on there and getting more views on there. So I'm trying to do more of that, and then I'm also on X, and I share on X too. I always put the links on X, which is astro_scoop. Usually links to the YouTube videos or links, and obviously I put the link to the live stream here. Yeah, and that's it. But we're doing the live streams Fridays here, 8 p.m., sometimes Saturdays. I'll try to let you know. But thank you so much for attending. Tonight was a little late. And happy birthday, Taurus. And next week will be Gemini. Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And again, the United States is giving me most of my views. So thank you, US, for keeping my channel afloat here. I appreciate it. All right, everyone, have a good week.